I'd look at a toy and I'd say, oh, here's a name for that guy. And I'd say, okay, let me extrapolate from that name and come up with a character profile and write whatever I had to write about it. So I don't really remember, which came first, but by the end of the weekend, they all got done. That was the important part from my point of view and Marvel's point of view, that we had something to turn into Hasbro on Monday. Initially, I don't think I worked directly with Hasbro, but that changed pretty quickly. Hasbro wanted me to, through Marvel, to develop all of these characters, come up with their names and their character profiles. So I would do that and I would submit it to Hasbro. But since I didn't type, or not very well, I would write longhand a character description with a primary name for the character and maybe a couple of second or third choices in case Hasbro didn't go for the first one. So this is my original handwritten character profile for Optimus Prime. So it extends on the other side of the page. And here's Megatron. Okay? So this is my original handwritten back in 1983. So I say Decepticon gun, I have the product number 5793, Decepticon gun, codename Megatron, alternate names, Death Ray, Master, Slagmaker, function, Decepticon leader. And then here's an entire profile, and it goes on to it's a profile, and then his abilities, and then his weaknesses. Megatron has no known weaknesses. And anyway, so once I turned these in, Hasbro then asked me to boil them down, abbreviate them, so they could put it on the back of their packages for their toys. I'm sure they got that idea from doing something similar with G.I. Joe. I don't remember ever having a conversation specifically about, oh, can you do the same thing they did at G.I. Joe? They just assumed that it worked for G.I. Joe. Let's do the same thing for Transformers, I suppose. I think it was Blaster. Who I just wanted to give like a very, very determined, very, he never showed any hesitation or doubt, or maybe I'm wrong. If I read the comics, maybe he did show a couple of times. But I think it was Blaster who had that personality profile in my mind that was modeled somewhat after Clint Eastwood. I think what makes Optimus Prime such a great, iconic character is that he doesn't let any adversity prevent him from moving forward and leading the people who depend on him and who are with him into the fray to deal with whatever needs to be dealt with. And no matter how much is thrown against him, no matter what the odds are, when everybody else is running the other direction, he's running toward the problem, not away from it. And I think that's what he represents. And also, I think the fact that Optimus Prime, at least when I was writing it, came to Earth and realized, even though we're an alien species to him, there's no connection. We're different tribes. He realized that he had a responsibility not just to his Autobots, the people that are part of his team, but he had a responsibility to the people of Earth to protect them from whatever might befall them because of what the Decepticons and what the Transformers overall might inflict upon them by just being here. When Hasbro came up with the idea of the Dinobots, it kind of gave me a couple of opportunities and a couple of challenges. The first challenge was, once again, after establishing that in the first issue of Transformers, that the spaceship crashes into Earth and remains dormant for like 1,000,000 years, and then they wake up, and it's these Decepticons and these Autobots. And then Hasbro says, okay, we have these other characters we want to introduce into the storyline. Well, they weren't on the spaceship. So I had to come up with, the challenge was coming up with another way of introducing new Transformers characters into this Earth scenario. And that was a challenge I faced several times over the years that I worked on the book, how to introduce yet another wave of Transformers into this scenario, which initially was a very closed scenario, but I found different ways of doing it. Anyway, with the Dinobots was one of those challenges. The other thing was that I think that was the first group of Transformers that were like kind of a self-contained subgroup. They were all dinosaur related. So in addition to coming up with a premise for why they looked like dinosaurs, which I think I related to where they wound up on Earth, which was in an area where there were real dinosaurs to base themselves on. But I was able to come up with names that sort of linked them all together. So there was Grimlock, he was the leader, and then he was a T-Rex-based Dinobot, and then there were the other 5 of them. I gave them all names that began with the letter S, so that they all kind of connected to each other. So I had a little fun coming up with the names, and coming up with names that I thought worked as Dinobot names, that had the right feel to them. Also, I probably played on a vicious stereotype about dinosaurs in general. They're not that smart. So I kind of dumbed down their dialogue a little bit, which probably was unfair. They're still these super sophisticated robotic creatures that are very, that are probably more advanced than humans in many ways. But in any case, I did that. I also made them much more brutal. So unlike previous Autobots that had a lot of concern about how their presence on Earth was affecting the human population, the Dinobots really didn't care so much about that sort of thing. They were a different breed, so to speak, of Autobots. They were very concerned about defending the Autobots and defeating the Decepticons. Not so concerned about the collateral damage that might result because of their presence and because of this ongoing conflict.